Welcome back, Pre-Calc. Hope you all are well. Our objective today is going to be to write equations of hyperbolas. This should look pretty familiar from the last lesson, so hopefully this goes smoothly for you. I've got the checklist on the screen. You know what to do from here. Alright, so real quick review. If you look at the equation on the screen, is this a vertical or a horizontal hyperbola, and how do you know? This is horizontal, and the reason we know that, first of all, it's a hyperbola is that your x and your y terms are being subtracted, and it's a horizontal because your x's come first, right? Similarly here, this is going to be a vertical hyperbola because your y's come first, so this is our general form standard form for a vertical hyperbola centered at HK. And while we are looking at this picture, I do want to just kind of remind you of a little bit of vocab here. So your transverse axis is the axis you are opening up on. So in this case, the y-axis. And that may also be called your focal axis. Okay? And then your other axis, the axis that your co-vertices are on, is called your conjugate axis. So just a little bit of vocab review for you. Alright, so I'm going to force a pause on your screen. Can you please just copy the blue words there? Okay, we're back. So I have that my foci are at 0, plus or minus 3, and my transverse axis, which is the axis your vertices sit on, has a length of 4. Okay, so let me ask you this. First of all, do you think this hyperbola is horizontal or vertical? This is vertical, and the reason we know is that my foci change on the y, right? And by the way, if I take the middle of my foci, I get my center. So I get HK. So in this case, my center must be the origin, right? Right in between 0 and plus or minus 3 would be 0, 0. So I know my center. I know that we open vertically, so I know that it should look something like this. Y squared over something minus x squared over something equals 1, right? And now we just need to find what? Now we need to find A and B. Well, if my transverse axis length is 4, then would you agree that A is half of 4? Because I would have to go 2 in both directions to get that length. All right, so A is 2. And is that going to go over my y squared or my x squared? A goes over your first term, and it's a squared, so I need a 4 here, right? Okay, now all that's left to find is b squared, and remember that we have this Pythagorean relation, that c squared is a squared plus b squared. So c must be 3, right? Because c is the distance from the center to one of your foci. So if I take 3 squared, c squared is 9, a squared is 4, and I'm looking for b squared, so b squared must be 5, right? So this is what we get for example 1. Alright, I'm going to force pause on your screen. Can you copy the blue words for me, please? Okay, we are back. So our center is at 1, negative 4, so there's our HK, that's good news. C is 6, our eccentricity E is 2, and we have a horizontal focal axis, okay? And focal axis, again, is synonymous to transverse axis. So, X is first or Y is first? X is first, horizontal focal axis, okay? So, I know that I'm going to have X minus 1 quantity squared over something, right? And then plus or minus? Minus, because it's a hyperbola, right? And then y plus 4 quantity squared over something equals 1, right? Okay, so now I need to find a squared and b squared, correct? Which I was given neither, but I was given my eccentricity, and remember that E is c over a. So E was given to be 2, c was given to be 6, and 6 divided by what is 2? 3. So A must be 3, so I'm going to put 3 squared, 9, under the x terms or the y terms? Under the x terms. All right, now for B, let's go back and use our Pythagorean relation of c squared equals a squared plus b squared. C was given to be 6, so c squared is 36, a squared is 9. I'm looking for b squared, and 36 minus 9 is 27. So I'm going to put my 27 here. And that's equation for example 2. All right, example 3, I'm going to force pause on your screen. Go ahead and write the blue. We are back. So we're giving the endpoints of the transverse axis, and I went ahead and plotted them for you so you could see that if the transverse axis is certainly horizontal, right? So because of that, we should have x's first, y's first, or it doesn't matter. X is first, okay? Now, we don't have our center yet, so let's go ahead and find the midpoint of those 2 points that I plotted to find our center. Now, I know that my y-coordinate is going to be 3, right? So if I just average 5 and -7, that will give me the middle of those, right? And I could average 3 and 3, but I know that that's 3. So 5 plus -7 is -2, over 2 is -1. And that is going to be my HK, okay? So we said that x's come first, so I'm going to have x plus 1 quantity squared over something. Now plus or minus? Minus, because it's a hyperbola. Then y minus 3 quantity squared over something equals 1, right? Good, so now I need to find a and b, and remember that basically 2a is the length of the transverse axis and 2b is the length of the conjugate axis. So why don't we find this length here? Let's see, I've gone from -7 to 5. So if we do 5 minus -7, that is going to give us a length of 12, right? So my transverse axis, I'm going to put it here, has a length of 12. That must mean that half of that is a, right? Because again, I have to go 6 and 6 to get a length of 12. So a is going to be 12 over 2, which is 6. So that must mean I have 36 here, right? Now my conjugate axis has a length of 10, so what would you say b is? B is 5, right? So I would need to go 5 and 5 to get a length of 10. So b is 5, making this a 25 here, okay? And that's our equation. All right, I'm going to go ahead and force a pause on your screen. See if you can graph this for me, and then let's check your work. All right, here's the answer. I plotted my vertices as well as my co-vertices and made my little box through that, which allowed me to make my asymptotes, and then make sure this one's opening horizontally, right, because your transverse axis was horizontal. All right, you all, I will see you in class.